Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, the role of audiovisual aids also in school education has not been fully appreciated and given a fillip through the CIET is there to look after the implementation of these programs and educational technology and helping the SIETs in the states. Not much progress has been made, and many schools have not got the TV sets or video so far. In fact, the government of Andhra Pradesh, as the minister very well knows, has made a lot of progress in introducing audiovisual aids in the schools. For classes 1 and 2, all the lessons have been converted into video cassettes, and schools have been given videos sets also. The midday meal scheme is being successfully implemented by the Tamil Nadu government. In Andhra Pradesh, we are not able to sustain the scheme for lack of resources and also organizational backup. About this, all the center has to take a view, and wherever possible, this should be encouraged so that retention of children in the schools will be higher. Similarly, many states are supplying uniforms and textbooks to school children. For this, also, there should be a special provision in the central budget to assist the states. As I mentioned earlier, the three language formula is not working properly in the Kendriya Vidyalayas. Also, in many states, particularly in the Hindi areas, the three language formula is not functioning. In the interest of national unity and integration, we have been repeatedly stressing that the Hindi states must introduce at least one language from the non-Hindi states as the third language. Many states are doing only with Sanskrit except the state of Haryana and one or two other states. They are not introducing the third language. Therefore, that must be done, and center must act if they really want national integration to be promoted. When we come to the university and higher education, the UGC's role is now confined only to giving money grants and some recognition, but it should devote more attention to the improvement of standards and avoidance of duplication, because many universities are starting courses which are duplicating other universities in the same state. They should have better coordination, and they should pay more attention to the standards in this respect. Then, about university teachers' salaries, the Mehrotra Committee's recommendations are being implemented. Then, one point which I would like to mention to the minister in this connection is how far the proliferation of journal colleges will help in the promotion of employment opportunities, because more and more educated unemployed are registering themselves in the employment exchanges, and how to prevent this kind of explosive situation, because journal educational colleges are being opened almost every day. In many places, there is no restriction on that. The state governments are also not placing proper restrictions on the opening of those colleges. In this regard, a policy should be evolved also. Also, the role of the private sector, private enterprise in running these colleges, particularly in the higher education, should also be defined. There used to be a lot of enthusiasm in the private enterprise to open colleges and run them in the past, but more and more stress is now being given to opening government colleges. That also requires a little review. Then the universities should be spared from the burden of the day to day administration, the administrative burden. They should devote more time for research and maintenance of standards, etc. in colleges. Nowadays, they are more burdened with the administrative work. In Andhra Pradesh, we are experimenting with the Commissioner of Higher Education, which of course has landed in trouble due to court orders. But you are going to have a National Council for Higher Education. Therefore, similarly, the Council's task should be to save universities from the day to day administrative work. The concept of open universities should also be encouraged in that respect. Also, Andhra Pradesh has taken a lead. It was the first state to start an open university. Subsequently, you have started the Indira Gandhi Open University here. So, more and more states should be encouraged so that those who cannot attend colleges regularly can take advantage of the education offered by the open universities. Then, about rural universities, the proposal is not making headway. In reply to a parliamentary question, the minister said that the plans are still being finalized. I do not know what the snag is and why the progress is so tardy in this respect. Another area where little progress has been made is in regard to delinking of degrees from jobs. The national policy on education has suggested that the Department of Personnel should complete a review of the job requirements and requirement rules to identify those jobs. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. It has given me great pleasure to have been able to visit the gold mines this morning. I have wondered about this country a great deal and also visited this state on 3 previous occasions, but I have visited the gold mines for the first time this morning. You can therefore easily understand how happy I am to have seen many things which I did not see before. I had seen many mines, some of which operate in the state from which I come, where I had seen coal mines, copper mines, iron mines, mica mines, but I had not seen a gold mine because it does not exist elsewhere. So it was a matter of real pleasure that I came here and saw the working of the gold mines in your area. In this country, nature has endowed us with a great deal of wealth which is hidden in the bowels of the earth. We have not been able so far to get a correct and exact picture of what there is under the earth. The government is engaged in setting up some sort of an organization which will investigate and estimate our mineral resources. Work in this line has been going on, but it is intended to intensify it so that we may go ahead in this direction. It is therefore a matter for congratulation that you are doing this kind of work and have been able to strike new fields which you consider to be quite satisfactory from the point of view of work and profit. You have no reason to apprehend that the government will do anything which will stand in the way of the development of this important industry. We are anxious to develop all our resources. It takes a little time for all governments to make up their minds, and especially when they have not all the necessary knowledge and information to enable them to form a correct decision on points. I understand a committee has been appointed which is going to look into all the aspects of this question so far as these mines are concerned, and I hope the recommendations of the committee will be such as will help further progress and development of these industries. It is in the interest of the government, it is in the interest of the workers, it is in the interest of the companies. So far, it has given me great pleasure to go round the town which has grown up in this place, which you said at one time was nothing but barren rocks. I have seen at Jamshedpur, and probably there are several other places like this where, on account of development of modern industries, townships have grown up, and this is one of them where there were jungles before. I think some of you might have seen Jamshedpur. Jamshedpur was nothing but a dense jungle about 45 years ago. It was then very largely inhabited by wild elephants. In the same place, we have today the biggest city in the province and the biggest steel factory in Asia. It often happens that when one industry grows up in a particular place, other subsidiary industries grow up along with it. From the experience of Jamshedpur, I can say that you can also look forward to the development of other subsidiary industries in your area. There are at Jamshedpur, I think, more men employed in the subsidiary industries than in the main industry, because whereas the main iron and steel works is one factory, which of course is a very big factory, there are large numbers of other industries round about the main factory, and they all employ large numbers of workers. Our village folk, although simple and mostly uneducated, were able to pick up the technical work. I believe that has been your experience also. A considerable proportion of the labor population here comes from the Madras Presidency and other local areas. The fact that the ordinary people are taking to modern industries gives us hope that our industries will prosper. For once the problem of trained technicians is overcome, the problem of finding, organizing, and directing skill will not present much difficulty. In any case, if necessary, we could get some specialized talent from outside. We are anxious for the growth of all industries. I am sure you also realize that for the growth of industries, it is necessary that our labor is contented and it feels secure. If that is borne in mind, I am sure with your experience and skill, you have no reason to fear that this industry would close down for want of sport, or that this place will once again be inhabited by lizards and jackals. I am sure, good willing, it will continue to prosper. I thank you all for the kindness shown to me and for taking me round and showing all the places. I am particularly thankful to the people who have come out in their thousands on the roadside to greet me. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. How time have changed the executive, which terms in the present context means politicians in power has the courage to tell the judiciary how to put its house in order by formulating a code of conduct for judges. What about the code of conduct of the ministers and parliamentarians? What about the code of conduct for the political parties during elections, often formulated but always violated? And what about the pervasive corruption in the executive? One would be inclined to tell the executive to practice honesty and uprightness before it preached, but one refrains from doing so because the sad face is that the judiciary has deteriorated beyond belief, and one no more feels morally confident in defending the institution. Look at the waning public support for the judges and the judiciary. When three Supreme Court judges were superseded, there was strong public protest against the move, and there were lawyers, public men, and journalists prepared to stand up and be quoted. When there was the move, the transfer of High Court judges, this was viewed in the correct perspective as a serious attempt further to discipline the judges. This instrument was liberally used during the emergency, though because of the censorship, formal and informal, the fact of the transfer of 16 judges did not come to light. It was heartening to discover that there were brave judges in the High Court who were prepared to pay the price for their uprightness. The nation owes a debt of gratitude to them. The full story of how the government has twisted arm of the judiciary is yet to be told. Facts remain hidden, though There are occasional rumblings, particularly by retired judges. Mr. Justice Jagmohan Reddy has gone on record as saying that there was an attempt by the government to influence the Keshavananda Bharati judgment and that some judges were party to it. We all know how an attempt was made by the then Chief Justice to review the Keshavananda Bharati judgment by the large bench, but the move was hastily abandoned, perhaps because it needed majority in favor of the review was not in sight, and we all know what the Supreme Court did in the ADM Jabalpur case, in which it was held that even the citizens' right to life and liberty got suspended during the emergency. We all know that dissenting voice of Justice H.R. Khanna, which is a darkest period of Indian polity as such, and we all know what the Supreme Court did in the S.P. Gupta case, commonly known as the Judge's case. The judiciary surrendered its final right of appointment to the executive. One of the unstarted reasons was that some of the judges constituting the bench had more faith in the executive than in their own Chief Justice. They critically talked in private about their judges, and the government not only gleefully grabbed what it was given on a platter but started reducing consultation with the Chief Justice into a far. There was wheeling and dealing or casual consultation on the telephone. Mr. Justice Venkatesh was not consulted about the elevation of Mr. Justice Ramaswamy, now in the news, to the Supreme Court. The point is simple. So long as the public was convinced that the judiciary was more sinned against that sinning, at least the more upright people came to its defense. But when they found that the worst enemies of the judiciary were some of the judges themselves, they started losing moral fervor. Some of the retired judges did the rest. They spoke openly, day in and day out, about the fall in judicial standards and position. Honorable Chief Justice was persuaded that one way of cleansing the judiciary was to transfer about 80 High Court judges. A contempt case was moved against him in Mumbai, but the judgment went in his favor. Then there is Mr. Justice Krishna Iyer, who has been speaking bluntly about his robbed brethren and their various acts of omission and commission. The question of judicial accountability is a pertinent one. The Constitution put the higher judiciary on a pedestal. A High Court or a Supreme Court judge cannot be punished for laziness or inefficiency or both. He cannot be punished for his lack of knowledge of law. All that can happen is some comments by a higher court or a larger bench, and it is becoming increasingly clear that he cannot easily be punished for corruption either. He has to impeached through a difficult process, now made much more difficult by the Supreme Court through its ruling on the subject. It is in this background that the Law Minister's suggestion for a code of conduct for judges needs to be viewed. The timing is perfect. Public sympathy for judges is virtually non existent, having rested all it wanted on a matter of appointments and transfers. The executive is further trying to humiliate the judges by focusing public attention on their more soft sides, and the points chosen for the proposed code are empirically based. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Madam, there was also a reference to unemployment, which I agree is a very serious problem which requires serious attention. Our government has certainly given it the desired attention and taken up those programs which have helped in generating employment both in the rural areas and in the urban areas. According to my friend, the number of unemployed is increasing, maybe compared to 1947 and now, yes, but he must not forget that the India of 2000 is not the India of 1947. The face of India has changed. The face of our rural India has changed. Our population, madam, has more than trebled in this intervening period. If we talk in terms of pure mathematics, then the entire population of India as on 15th August 1947 has been brought above the poverty line. But what have they themselves been doing for the poor and for the unemployed, both in West Bengal and Tripura? Have unemployment and poverty vanished from West Bengal? Has it vanished in Tripura? In the case of West Bengal, it is in the one state in India where the economy has been most mismanaged, where employment is given not keeping in view the deserving nature of a case, not keeping in view the social and economic plight of an individual, but whether he holds the red card of the CPIM or not. The same were appointing party cadres as school teachers without any school buildings, denying unemployment to genuine unemployed youth because the people are more inclined towards the Congress government. These friends on the other side are becoming upset to an extent that they have refused to accept the verdict of the people. They have refused to accept the mandate given by the people to Congress party even in the latest election in Tripura. Madam, coming back to the situation which prevailed last year, it is a matter of concern that we continue to have a serious challenge posed by the fundamentalists. It is well known that they have been getting the assistance from across the border where training camps have been set up. They are getting weapons from there, and innocent people, including women and children, are becoming increasingly the victims of such forces. We condemn this outside interference and assistance, and we should not have any reservations. Sir, the other threat which we face because of the military build up across our borders is also a threat for all of us to face. While I will dwell on it later. What I find is that friends on the other side sometimes ignore or refuse to accept that it is equally their responsibility to be one with the government on these issues, those issues which concern all of us as a nation. Last year, we have also seen the worst drought of the century, more severe than what was there in 1967. The drought affected 240 districts in the country. In some parts of Saurashtra and Rajasthan, it was for the third or fourth successive year that the drought was there, and in Bengal, Assam, and parts of Bihar do had floods. It was a great challenge, and I commend the government for having geared itself up. The government did not for a moment shy away from its responsibilities. In spite of the enormity of the challenge, the situation was met effectively. We all know with what promptness the central teams were dispatched to all the affected states to assess the damage or the loss. Timely assistance was provided to the people, particularly to the farmers. The public distribution system was strengthened, water was made available, essential commodities were made available, and there was no panic in any other country, particularly in a developing country. A crisis of this magnitude would have resulted in panic, but here we commend the government for having weathered the storm, and in addition to that, for the alertness with which the counter fiscal measures have been taken and fiscal discipline introduced in the country to check the inflationary trend. I will not go into details about the economic achievements which have been mentioned in detail by my esteemed colleague, but may I say that this challenge of drought is certainly not over. We must never be complacent. We have to invoke the latest technology to unearth our hidden groundwater resources. We have to ensure adequate growth in production of fodder and also strengthen our public distribution system. I have no doubt that the government, which has demonstrated clearly its abilities and its determination, will able to do it. I may briefly mention about some of the very significant achievements during 1988. In spite of all challenges, we expect an industrial growth of 8 to 9%. This is commendable, and I hope our friends on the other side, though they oppose this motion, will not disagree with something which is so visible and clear. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Madam Deputy Chairman, since I have to end my speech on a sour note, I start with a sweet note by adding my own voice to the plethora of congratulations to our scientists on this great achievement. I only wish that our achievements in other sectors also had been so remarkable as to deserve compliments. Then really the debate on the motion of thanks to the president would have been very illuminating. Madam, I am sorry to say that the president address delivered this week, without meaning any disrespect to the president, was indeed disappointing. It was so dull and routine that the ministers who attended the function, including the Prime Minister, dozed off during most of the speech. That shows the character of the speech, the great achievements incorporated in the speech, and quite strangely, madam, this 16-page document does not give any indication of the direction in which this government is going or proposes to go. It does not give even an idea of how this government is going to tackle the manifold problems facing this country. More time has been devoted to the problems of Afghanistan, Thailand, and other countries, and the problem of apartheid. I do not object to that, but when specific solutions are offered to international problems, the problems of other countries, the president address does not indicate any solution to any of the problems facing this country. That is the unfortunate and the most significant part of his speech. Madam, this government came into power in 1984 with two specific promises. One is that they would provide a government that works, and the other is that they would provide a clean and honest government. My endeavor would be to disapprove both these claims. It is not a government that works, it is also not an honest government. While saying so, I do not want to belittle the achievements of and the hard work put in by our farmers, by our industrial workers, and by our scientists and technologists in their respective fields. But for them, this country would have collapsed long ago under the burden of mismanagement and misrule of this government, either in relation to the problems facing the country or in relation to the problems facing by the state government for center's approval. There is complete standstill, and the government does not come forward with any solutions to these problems. Sir, whenever a decision is taken, there is so much of drama in that. If you take the recent changes of the central ministers or even the chief ministers, you would find midnight elections. Heavens would not have fallen if the Bihar legislature or the Madhya Pradesh legislature or some other legislature meets during the day and elects its leaders. People are rushed by special planes and elected or selected at midnight hours, bringing about wholesale changes in the state administration. Similarly, there is no finality about the cabinet changes at the center, in spite of 23 cabinet reshuffles since this prime minister has come to power. The cabinet is incomplete because even now a number of portfolios are held as dual charge by some cabinet ministers. The cabinet itself is not complete even after nearly 3 years of this government. That itself shows the indecision of the government and the leadership here. If you come to the specific problems, this government had earned some euphoria because of certain accords not signed in the beginning of its tenure. There was the Public Accord and the Assam Accord and whatnot. But what is the position of these accords today? The Punjab Accord is in shambles. The problem is more acute today than what it was when this government took charge. There is more extremism, more violence, in spite of the dismissal of Punjab government for alleged inept handling of the law and order situation and consequent imposition of president's rule. The situation has not improved, it has in fact worsened. We should be dismissed now for this worsening situation. Now there are rumors that even the Director General of Police and the Governor also want to quit. That is the stage to which the Punjab problem has been brought. On the Assam Accord, nothing has been done. The foreigners' problem has not been solved. A big contingent, including the Assam Home Minister, came here and the other day held a dharna at the boat club and got arrested. And that is the stage of the Assam Accord, and new problems have been added. In West Bengal, there is a Gorkhaland demand by giving encouragement to a secessionist demand. Another problem has been created. Another state was sought to be created in West Bengal. I find that all these problems are arising or solutions are evading the problems because the top leadership today lacks not only the maturity to handle these problems but also the political advice, which is very essential for a solution of the problems. The Prime Minister is surrounded by a courtier of persons who have no political background. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. I feel it a great honor to inaugurate this memorable session of the World Forestry Congress. For the first time, it is meeting outside Europe in an Eastern country. The importance of the occasion is heightened by the fact that it is combined with the first session of the World Tropical Forestry Congress. It is fitting that the first of what I hope may be a regular series of tropical forestry congresses should be held in India, which has been working in this difficult field of forestry for close on a century. I am therefore happy that the offer of the Government of India to undertake responsibility for holding the Fourth World Forestry Congress was accepted by the Food and Agriculture Organization. That organization has extended its full cooperation in the difficult task of organizing the Congress, for which we are deeply grateful. I believe we have here today as representative gathering of world foresters and technicians connected with wood based industries as has ever assembled in any place before. Delegates from 51 countries and representatives of a number of organizations such as the Food and Agriculture Organization, UNESCO, and ILO are present at this inaugural session. It is a matter of gratification that even countries which are not members of a FAO have considered the Congress important enough to send strong delegations to participate in its discussions. In the name of India, I extend to all the members of the Congress a most cordial welcome. Many of them have taken part in the excursions which were organized in the different parts of the country. I hope they have been able to see something of our forestry activities and of the art and culture of this ancient land. It is appropriate, I think, that the Congress meets at Dehradun, which is universally recognized as the headquarters of Indian forestry. The Forest Research Institute, in whose convocation hall we are assembled today, is one of the oldest institutions of research and education in the country, dating back as it does to 1878, when it started as a modest school for training forest rangers. During the three quarters of a century of its existence, it has played a leading part in the development of Indian forestry. I believe its forest work is not unknown in international forestry circles for the betterment of a forestry infrastructure. I observe that the Congress has a comprehensive agenda before it, and I note with satisfaction that tropical forestry figures prominently in it. The discussions will no doubt be of a technical nature, but if the recommendations which emerge from the discussions are to be fruitful, they must inevitably take note of administrative, budgetary, and social contribution. Forestry is not an end in itself as an aspect of land utilization. Its value and significance are exactly in proportion to the sustained contribution it makes it to human welfare tangibly and directly through the produce that comes out of the forest, and subtly and indirectly by protecting the soil and conditioning the climate, thereby sustaining the physical basis of life. Forests also provide a great refuge and a home for wildlife. In the end, they have a great recreational and aesthetic value. In India, the forests are closely bound up with our religious and spiritual heritage. Whatever function the forest perform, the touchstone and measure of their value should be human satisfaction. Wood is essential for human life as fuel, as a versatile structural material, and as raw material of many products which are indispensable to modern life. Forests are efficient agents for soil conservation, for flood control, and for stream flow maintenance. In principle, it should not be difficult for any country to work out the proportion that forest should occupy in its territory and the manner in which they should be distributed so that they may yield in full their productive and protective values. But hardly in any country would it be possible to secure a logically desirable and theoretically correct allocation of land to agriculture, pasture, and forestry because one is not planning on a clean slate, so to say. In an ancient country like India, the pressure of the human and cattle population on the soil makes the problem of obtaining sufficient land under forest one of peculiar difficulty. An approach to the target fixed can often be made by afforesting waste lands, by rehabilitation of waste woodlands, and by encouraging village forestry. There are, however, limits to what can be done in these directions. Every country has to strike a balance between the competitive claims of agriculture, animal husbandry, and forestry for use of the land for productive purposes, and this balance must, in the last resort, be based on considerations of what is practically possible in a given set of conditions rather than on what may be theoretically desirable. In the older countries, it may happen that the area under forest plus the area available for afforestation is less than what is considered the desirable minimum now. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Mr. Vice Chairman, sir, I rise to support the motion of thanks for the President's address. I am not in the habit of attacking anybody, but in his address to the joint session of Parliament, the President, with great eloquence and lucidity, has put all the achievements of government. Also, he has thrown sufficient light on the future policy and programs of this government. There is hardly any field which he has not touched upon in the address, so it is not necessary for me to elaborate on journal issues which have already been included in the President's address because it is in the catalogue of the achievements of this government. It is the duty of the opposition to pinpoint some loopholes no role to play in democracy. So we go here and there, otherwise, they should not be agitated over what they say because a time will come when we have to take vote on this and people will throw them out at the time of voting. Therefore, I do not have any intention to confront what they say and what they point out against the government. Since it is a journal discussion, members belonging to different parts of the country use the opportunity to bring about the problems pertaining to their respective areas. As you know, sir, from the northeastern region, we are very few, and since I represent that region, I want to elaborate on certain issues which confront this region because the other major issues in this country, like the problems of Punjab, Sri Lanka, and agitation in UP, have overshadowed our problems. Therefore, I would like to highlight the specific problems which we are facing in the northeastern region. Unless this region is developed, unless the people of this region feel contented the security of the country in that region is not safe. Therefore, I would like to draw the attention of the House and the members to the need to pay special attention to the very delicate and difficult problems which we face in that region. I am happy to say that the recent election results in that region, be it Nagaland or Tripura, clearly shows that the people of that region are for emotional integration, political integration, and that they want to participate with the rest of the country in molding the destiny of the nation as an equal partner. Sir, I want to point out some of the missing links which the president may have advertently or inadvertently omitted, some of the things which he should have included in the president's address. For example, the Prime Minister has declared that he has got an open mind for solution of all the problems of underground Nagas within the parameters of the Constitution of India. I would like to draw the attention of this House to the fact that the insurgency still continues in Nagaland, Manipur, even in Assam and Tripura, and you cannot just brush aside this kind of insurgency. It has been there since independence. Before independence, we tribals asserted our identity. We do not like to be swamped, or we do not want to be submerged by the majority community, and therefore we asserted our identity, our right to survive as a people, but it was construed as anti-national. But it was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru who recognized these aspirations of the tribal people. Yes, small we are, it was he who had given us the political equality with the rest of the country. So the tribal people shall never forget the Nehru family. Today I am saying this because it was only because of Pandit Nehru that I could be here today as member of parliament. Now I would like to mention Nagaland was a disturbed area for 20 years. Even now we have the NSCN and the federal group of underground people. When I was chief minister, with the permission of late Mrs. Indira Gandhi and the present prime minister, I initiated to contact them, and I have succeeded to a large extent. I told them that whether it is a federal group, they are Nagas, they are Indian citizens. If we kill each other, it amounts to fratricide. It is civil war. How can you entertain civil war in your own state, among your own people, among your own brothers? So it is always good to bring them together, bring them to the talking table so that a solution can be worked out. The Prime Minister, during his last visit to Nagaland, has also said that the door is open for talks within the framework of the Constitution of India. But at the same time, I read the paper that there will be a joint operation of the Burmese army and the Indian army. On the one side, you are saying you join us. On the other side, again, you want to use dandas. Is it peaceful approach? I would request the Prime Minister to see whether this is a pragmatic approach. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, unfortunately for most of us, what is decided by the highest judicial authority in our country is that the directive principles are not as important as fundamental right. It is most unfortunate. I do not mean any criticism against my individual judge sitting. I mean criticism from the point of view of the principle adopted to decide the cases. The directive principles are not only the duties cast upon the state, they are a sort of rights available to citizens as a whole in the country, to the society as a whole. We consider the right available to an individual, and we do not consider the right available to so many individuals in the country. We are committing a mistake somewhere. They have decided that because directive principles are not justiciable, fundamental rights are more important, and when a law is made to implement the directive principles, if it goes against the fundamental right, it has to be struck down. That is most unfortunate. There is a decided case in which a Harijan student was admitted in a medical college. A law was made for that purpose. The case went to the High Court in Madras, and it decided that equality before law is not available under that act because all students should be treated equal, and so the admission was cancelled. That was most unfortunate. It is a different thing that the judgment was reversed and so many other steps were taken, and we have now in our country students from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes getting admission to medical colleges on priority. It is all there, but that a different thing. Only a few days back in this house itself, I do not mean any disrespect to the honorable members who pleaded the cause in the most beautiful, most effective manner. What have we decided? There was a law brought before this house which said that in order to protect the skull and brain of an individual, he should wear helmet. Then because of a prevailing religious and other social circumstances, certain citizens were given exemptions from this. He should, if you do this, somebody will go to the court and get an injunction against this because there is discrimination against women in this country. What was the result? The result was that the honorable minister had to say that the ladies would be exempted. With respect to what my friend is asking us to do, I am one with him. I would be the happiest person if this is included in the chapter on fundamental rights. I would be the happiest person, but there are certain difficulties, and those difficulties are to be taken into account. my dear friend standing here said that unless you change some other provisions in the constitution, it is not going to be possible for you to implement this fundamental right. Supposing we are not including this in fundamental rights, but supposing we are trying to implement it in Maharashtra, the employment guarantee resolution was passed and then the law was passed. Now we are trying to see that this is included in the fundamental right chapter, but there was difficulty in America when President Roosevelt, under the New Deal, made a law to see that those who were in service were not retrenched in that recession period. That law was challenged in the Supreme Court, and that law was first struck down when he came out openly and when he said, I will pack the benches. That pack the benches phrase changed the entire situation, and a different judgment was given, and the law was again declared as not ultra vires of the constitution. That is the position there. Now if you make a change of this kind, if you pass a law that is not going to help us, it may somehow or the other create so many difficulties. We have Article 32 in our constitution. What does Article 32 and also Article 266 provide? Article 32 provides the right to an individual to go to the Supreme Court in order to enforce the fundamental rights made available to the citizens in the fundamental right chapter. Article 32 is also there. I do not mean that the people should misinterpret me when I say that Article 32 creates difficulty and that Article 32 should not be there. I do not mean that Article 32 would be necessary. Difficulty arises as Article 32 is there, and if fundamental right is made available to the citizen, that citizen can directly go to the Supreme Court. Article 32 says that writ can be issued against the government. There is the right available to the citizen in the fundamental right. Article 32 is there, and Article 226, which is not treated as a part of the fundamental rights chapter, also gives the same kind of right to citizen in the High Court as given by the fundamental right. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. We are lucky in having this centenary of the post and telegraphs soon after having celebrated the centenary of the Indian Railways. It is on occasions like this that one gets an opportunity of looking back and assessing the past achievement and also planning for the future. It is indeed gratifying that these important occasions have synchronized with our 5-year plan. You will agree that correct stock taking is the essential prerequisite of sound planning, and I do not think anything could make for sounder planning in the field of post and telegraphs than the celebration of this centenary and organizing this exhibition. In the context of scientific progress and amenities of modern life, we are accustomed to think of India as a young country, the fact that we became masters of our affairs at home only 6 years ago tends to confirm this impression. In reality, this impression is an illusion to allay which it will be necessary to know the facts about the growth and development of telecommunications in India. 100 years ago, telegraph lines began to radiate from Calcutta, which was then India's capital. Actually, the beginning had been made in this direction 14 years earlier in 1839 when an Englishman, Dr. Smith, completed on his own and without official assistance about 21 miles of telegraphic line proceeding from Calcutta in the direction of Diamond Harbour. It was therefore, however, in 1951 that the first telegraph line to carry traffic was constructed between Calcutta and Diamond Harbour. The next 2 years may be said to be a period of experimentation. Towards the end of 1853, the experimental stage ended and countrywide expansion of telegraphic traffic was planned. The first line to be taken in hand was between Calcutta and Agra in November 1853. Since then, our telegraph services have gone on expanding in all directions. There are not many countries in the world which could trace back the history of their channels of communications so far back. From the very beginning, these services were government owned, and it is now recognized that the Indian Post and Telegraphs is the oldest government owned public utility in the world. It is a fact of which we can all be legitimately proud. The Indian Post and Telegraphs Department for its great strides since the pre-mutiny. Since independence, great progress has been made in the field of post and telegraphs. In this development, the village and not merely the city was the target of concentration. Thousands of new post offices have been set up in the countryside so that today every village with the population of 2000 or above has a post office. The Communication Ministry's target is to bring the post office within 3 miles of every Indian, irrespective of the remoteness of his village. In other fields, namely those of telephone, wireless communication, etc., progress has been equally commendable. Telephone exchanges are being automatized so as to do away with manual exchanges. Automatic exchanges are already working in several places like Delhi, Bombay, Madras, etc. In Calcutta, too, it has started working. The next places to be taken up are Lucknow, Patna, Jaipur, Ajmer, Gwalior, and Coimbatore. It is proposed to install high power wireless transmitters at Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, and New Delhi and strengthen the coastal wireless stations. The all round expansion of the wireless network will cost Rs 57 lakh. The Indian Telephone Industries factory at Bangalore has already started supplying automatic exchange equipment. A telephone cable factory is in the offing at Chittaranjan and a tally printer factory is proposed to be set up soon. This record of progress is indeed very satisfactory. Nevertheless, quite a lot has yet to be achieved. I am glad that the Post and Telegraphs is conscious of this fact and does not propose to rest on its oars. It is concentrating on its 5-year plan, of which expansion and modernization are the slogans. In the plan, rupees 48 crore are earmarked for capital outlay. The objectives of the development plan include the opening of a telegraph office in every town of 5,000 or more, in every subdivisional headquarter, and in every thana or police station, irrespective of its size. Every district headquarter and every town of the 30,000 or more will have a telephone exchange by this year. Trunk facilities will be extended to every subdivisional headquarter as well as to every town having a population of 20,000 or more. A large number of public call offices are to be opened. Lastly, the welfare of workers is a cardinal principle with the P&T department. Their working conditions will be improved and a definite number of them will have been provided government accommodation by next year. About the importance of modern communications, nothing much need be said, for the telegraph, the telephone, and the wireless, which have ended time and distance, are the principal characteristics of the present age. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. This appeal by Industrial Development Bank of India takes exception to the judgment passed by the full bench of the Andhra Pradesh High Court in original side appeal number 1 of 2005, whereby it has been held that notwithstanding the winding up order in the case of Miss Shri Vishnu Industries Limited and the Provisions Companies Act 1956, the customs authorities have the first right to sell the imported goods under the Customs Act 1962 and adjusted the sale proceeds towards payment of customs duty. The company during the period 1994-2000 was granted and availed of financial assistance from the appellant IDBI as a security. The company had hypothecated movable properties and created equitable mortgage of immovable properties by depositing title deeds. The charge was duly registered with the registrar of companies. In addition, the promoters and guarantors had furnished personal guarantees. In the present case, we are concerned with the hypothecated movable property, namely machinery and its component imported from Italy during the years 1998-1999. The goods packed in 180 wooden containers were warehoused in a private bonded warehouse by executing bond in terms of section 59(1) of the Customs Act. The goods were initially warehoused for 1 year, which period was extended However, as the goods were not cleared for home consumption in terms of Section 47 of the Customs Act, even after expiry of the extended period of warehousing, show cause notices were issued, and after considering the explanation given by the company, orders in original dated 15th September 2000 and 10th October 2000 were passed confirming levy of customs duty of rupees 3 lakhs and rupees 10 lakhs respectively. When the company did not pay the duty, the authorities had passed an order for sale of the warehoused goods for recovery of the customs duty, relying on the powers conferred under Section 72 bracket 2 read with Section 142 of the Customs Act. Thereafter, another order under Section 72 bracket 2 of the Customs Act was passed for detention and sale of the warehoused goods for recovery of rupees 22 lakhs. On failure to pay the duty, steps were initiated for auctioning the imported goods, and the company was informed as per the decisions of the relevant authority in the case for action required here. In the meanwhile, company petition number 168 of 2002 was filed before the Andhra Pradesh High Court for winding up of the company. This petition was admitted on 1st April 2003. The company was directed to be wound up with the order passed. Thereupon, the official liquidator filed an application under Section 468 of the Companies Act, read with Rules 9 and 11 of the Companies Rules 1959, for directing the customs authorities to hand over possession of the imported goods which had been put up for auction for payment of the customs duty. This application was allowed by a single judge of the High Court with the order observing inter alia that the customs authorities had not followed the procedure contemplated under the Customs Act before passing the order under Section 72 of the Customs Act, in the absence of which the detention orders were void ab initio and non-exist in the eyes of law. Secondly, on an order of winding up being passed in terms of Section 456 of the Companies Act, the assets of the company in liquidation by operation of law vest in the official liquidator, who alone was entitled to deal with the effects and actionable claims. Reference was also made to Section 447 of the Companies Act. Consequently, as the winding up order had been passed against the company, but sale was yet to be effected, the official liquidator was duty bound to take into his custody and control all properties, effects, and actionable claims, including the movable property, that is, the imported goods. Official liquidator, as the custodian of all the properties of the company, functions under the directions of the company code. Any person making any claim against the company has to prove his claim before the official liquidator by placing necessary material in support. Accordingly, the submission regarding the custom authorities' entitlement and right under the Customs Act to sell the imported goods to realize their dues was rejected. on the customs authorities preferring an intercourt appeal. The matter was referred to the full bench of the Andhra Pradesh High Court on the question of whether the claim of a secured creditor has precedence over the right of the customs authorities to recover the customs duty. The full bench, relying on and approving the ratio of the Calcutta High Court in Collector of Customs versus Datron India Limited, disagreed with the view expressed by a full bench of the Madras High Court in UTI Bank Limited. The full bench of the Andhra Pradesh High Court has held that this case has no application in this particular case. Stop.